Tăng Thiền, go ahead.
Yeah. Namo fundamental teachers, Sakyamuni Buddha. Namo fundamental teachers, Sakyamuni Buddha. Namo fundamental teachers, Sakyamuni Buddha. The unsurpassed, deep, profound, subtle, wonderful Dharma in 100,000 million eons is difficult to encounter. Now that's come to seem wholly within my insight and hearing about developing the someone to an actual meaning.
Yeah. The third common one is the Buddha. Okay? All right. Okay. We learn about the story of the Bodhisattva. I think we stop right here somewhere. Let's start from here. Okay, let's do this. Tammy, you want to start from here?
Now at that time, a Hindu teacher called Shantideva appealed to the king and issued the following challenge. He said that he would draw the medallia of Sarva in the sky, and that if the Buddhist teachers were able to destroy it, then all Buddhist images and writings should be consigned to the flames, and everyone obliged to accept the tenets of his religion. The king summoned the Buddhist Sangha and informed them of the challenge, but nobody could undertake to destroy the medallia. The king was deeply troubled, but when the serving woman told him what she had seen, he ordered Shantideva be summoned. They searched high and low and eventually found him sitting under a tree. When they explained the situation, he announced that he was equal to the challenge, but that he would need a jug filled with water, 2 pieces of cloth, and fire. Everyone was prepared according to his instructions. On the evening of the following day, the Hindu yogi drew some lines on the sky and departed. Everyone began to feel afraid, but early next morning, as the medallia was being drawn, no sooner was the eastern gate finished than Shantideva entered into a profound concentration. At once there arose a tremendous hurricane. The medallia was swept away into the void, and the crops, trees, and writings. The crops, trees, and even the villages were on the brink of destruction. The people were scattered. The Hindu teacher was caught up in the wind like a little bird and swept away, and a great darkness fell over the land. But a light shone out from between Shantidev's eyebrows, showing the way for the king and queen. They had been stripped of their clothes and were covered with dust. And so with the fire he warmed them, with the water he washed them, and with the cloth he dressed and comforted them. When through his power of concentration the people had been gathered together, washed, anointed, clothed, and set at ease, Shantideva introduced many of them to the Buddhist teaching. He caused heathen places of worship to be demolished, and centers of the Buddhist teaching to flourish, spread, and remain for a long till. As a result, the country came to be known as the place where the non-Buddhists were defeated. Although for his own part, Shantideva claimed to be no more than an ordinary man, Jetara tells us that he was considered to be an emancipation of man Jugasha in the estimation of Prana was a era or noble being, in referring to the excellence of his works. Andra wrote, many beings have appeared, great lords of Buddha's teaching, yet in realization and experience none have I found like Shantideva. Master Krishnakar spoke of Shantideva as one who had placed man Juga's feet upon the crown of his head. His excellence was indeed unbounded. Shantideva left behind him 3 texts. Of these 2 works, the Shakasham Mucha, and the Sutra Samukaya are respectively extensive and brief. The third work, namely the Bodhisattva, is brief in form but extensive in meaning, and it is well known that in India, no less than 108 commentaries were composed upon it.
Okay, all right. So, all right. Just briefly summarize that what you just read.
So the king proposed a challenge that he would create a medallia in the sky, and if anyone could, if that he can make it disappear, then they would follow the Buddhist teachings. But if no one could make, but if it didn't disappear, then everyone would have to follow his teachings. And Shantideva was able to do that through was it a hurricane?
Yeah.
I think it was through a hurricane. But he did not. The king and queen were able to survive, and when they survived, then they followed the Buddhist teachings.
So basically, it's the Hindu teacher, right? Told the king that he wanted to challenge the Buddhist teacher, right? That he will draw the mandala of Mahasastava. Do you know what is mandala? Oh yeah, you know, right? At the temple, you see that, right? Tell me.
So I think I was getting confused because I was thinking the mandala was the different hand signals, but now that the medallia is that the creations in the sand where they make it piece by piece of the sand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, mandala is I think it's the way that they draw the mandala based on their concentration. So that mandala is in Buddhism. That is I don't know what they say in English. It's tough for me to describe. But let me go and show you the English version. It's the way to contemplate. That is one of the cultivation that also. Let's see, the Great Compassion Bodhisattva Mandala is one of them. Okay, there are many different mandala. The one we have at the temple is also the Great Compassion Mandala. Okay, this is the one that we see at the temple. And what is the meaning of that represent? As a symbol of the cosmos or the universe, a traditional mandala is a square containing a circle, and the entire design is a symmetrical and balanced. It's very symmetrical and balanced. And some spiritual traditions use the mandala for meditation or marking a spiritual state. So basically, this is for the object for them to contemplate when they do the meditation. Simply means circle in Sanskrit, but let me see. Okay, the creation of the mandala is intended to help the viewer to generate the boundless compassion for all beings. So this is so the compassion mandala is represent for the Valo Takara, that is the compassion bodhisattva. That is the one yin bodhisattva. Đây ạ. Tôi đang dạy học. Đó. Con gọi cho cô nói cho tôi. Okay, sorry. So, So for them to, for example, in this case, the mandala is the spiritual contemplation for them to contemplate, to generate the compassion. This is one of the mandala, right? So let me see, because I don't know much about the mandala. William, do you know a lot of them?
No, I only know a little bit about it. Like there's all these sort of meaning that's in the shapes that they use. Like it's representing specific teachings frequently. They're pictured, and I know in Tibetan Buddhism they'll frequently involve like the different auspicious symbols, like the endless knot, or like the the canopies or the conch shells, and but just very, very surface stuff.
Yeah, I think the shape is always circle. That's what they said. It's very for the spiritual contemplation, and they have very specific meaning to the spiritual practice for them to contemplate during the time they do in the meditation. Because the one that we saw at the temple, they are the Tibetan monk. They are concentrated and they draw on the sand, and they draw the mandala, compassion mandala on the sand, and that is one of the method they are practicing. That means it comes from their mind, very pure, right? It's one of the method they are doing the practice for the compassion for that specific mandala. Yeah? So basically, in this teaching here, the Hindu, they also have the mandala of their own, right? So so that means I think it's a way to contemplate for them to practice the meditation. So in other religion, they also have that too. So that look like they do have it. So they challenge that they can draw the mandala on the sky if the Buddhist teacher unable to destroy the mandala, and that means all the Buddhist sutra and center should be Buddhist center should be destroyed. Should not allow for the people to worship, right? That whole idea. But you know what? When the Shantideva, he's the one who was there, and he used his spiritual power to be able to create the hurricane, right, to wipe out the mandala, and you know what, and that's why a lot of people scared that time. But with his spiritual power, I think he admit the radiant light from the two eyes, right? Look like from the story they said, right? Did they say correctly, William?
You said he emitted radiant light from
The two eye, right? I think that's how they be able to calm down the queen, the king, and the queen, right? So help them to be humble.
Mm-hmm.
So that make the people feel comfortable, and after that, everything disappear and everything back to normal. So everyone begin to follow the Buddhist teaching, and the non-Buddhists were defeated, and therefore the Buddhist teaching widely stressed at that time. From that on, so that's the whole idea. Remember one thing: when the time the Buddhist is not widely stressed, right? The spiritual power is so important. Do you know why? Because usually Buddha did not allow his disciples to use any psychic power. Do you know why, William?
I mean, it would seem like people could focus too much on it. Like they could only want to learn from the disciples that had psychic powers and not from the others. And it may be easy to become kind of attached to it, or for someone to feel like they're more special because they have them.
Tell me, what do you think? Tell me, why the Buddha did not allow, want to allow his disciple to learn the psychic power?
Well, just like William was saying, because well, you don't want people to get arrogant. You want them to remain humble, and also you wouldn't want people to start worshiping them like they're gods or something.
Right, that's true. That means it's more. That means you will lead the people into the path of more superstitious, right? Instead of learning the Dharma. Learning the Dharma is the most important, because the Dharma can help us to be liberated, not the power. Learning the power, you will not be liberated. You only learn because you follow them just like the superstitious. Does it make sense, William? So, but when the time, during this time, because the Buddhist is not widely stressed in the India, so for the non-Buddhists, it's a lot of non-Buddhists there. That means the Buddhists for the Buddhist follower is not many, and this is important for the white teacher to use this kind of spiritual power, because that's how they can trust into the Buddhism, and when they trust into the Buddhism, that when they will begin, the teacher will begin to teach the Dharma, because he only used the psychic power for the experience mean, not for the ultimate. Because the ultimate, it teaches them to understand the Dharma so they can be free from suffering. The power won't help them to free from suffering. Okay. So, but nowadays, when you see people using that kind of power, is that a good thing? William?
Or just any sorts of powers. I can't say I've witnessed that a lot, but I think generally probably not a good thing, because if people have that power, they may not have the wisdom of how to apply it in a way that benefits people instead of serves selfish selfish ends.
Okay, our grandmaster Changhua, he also sometimes use it, but he use in the subtle way. He don't use it in the public. So, for example, if he need to help that person, he can help that person, but they don't even know that he helped them. Or sometimes he helped them even though they know it. For example, one time when he was in China, right? He was on the boat, right? And there was the man that who been handicapped. That means he cannot walk since he was born, right? And the master said, "Do you want to walk? I can make you walk." And he just used his stick, and he hit with the stick to hit the foot 3 times, and he asked, just stand up and walk. And you know what? This man not even believe. He said, how could that be? And of course, he just stand up and try, and he be able to walk. The reason he doing this is because at that time a lot of people do not know about Buddhism. And he just used it, that means to help them to understand Buddhism. But from that on, he rarely used the power to display. He just only use it for, but most of the time, the teacher, that the true cultivator, they only focus on the Dharma. They don't focus on the psychic power, but they do use it for the benefit of others, not benefit themselves. But the one is not truly cultivated. They use the psychic power for their own benefit, for their family. Does it make sense? But they don't focus on the Dharma. That is different. So we have to be very careful. Because they want to get the multitude attention. When they come to them, they can use the black magic to nail them, to blackmail them. That is scary, right? It's very scary to hold them up, for them to become their disciple. That means unconsciously become the disciple. Does it make sense? This is scary. It happens nowadays a lot. So we have to be very careful. Doesn't matter who use the power, we always raise the question, why this man doing this? It is compliant with the Buddha teaching? Is it the right view? So we have to look further and we have to do more inquiry before we follow this person. We have to be very cautious. Does it make sense to you, Tammy?
Yeah, it's funny because even my own son, he's had conversations with me before we talk about, becoming Buddhas or Bodhisattvas. And he told me, he said, I don't know, Mom. I don't know. I think I might just want the superpowers rather than helping the people. So he's even brought up, I think I might just want I don't know about helping the people, but I think the superpowers. And then one of the kind of the subtle stories I like about the Grandmaster, and I might get some of the details wrong, but the story of the 3 walkers rather than the 2 walkers, where the monks were walking I think it was 100 miles, where they bowed every footstep, and
every 3 steps 1 bow, right?
Every 3 steps 1 bow, yeah. And there was 2 American monks that were doing it, but the authorities came because they were worried about their safety, about people seeing them while they were walking on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them's wives had made cookies for him, and they said, why don't y'all wear the maroon like the old monk that walks with you? Why don't y'all wear a maroon like the old monk, and make sure you give him some of these cookies too. And when he left, they both looked at each other because they were like, they knew who he was talking about, that he was talking about the Grandmaster, but he had never walked with them. So in his own way, he had came and was walking and protecting them, even though he wasn't really there.
Right. Because the Grandmaster, he have that power. He always there to save, to help his disciple along the way of the 3 steps 1 bow. There one time I remember that when the two American here doing 3 steps 1 bow for the first time in 1973. That is the first one, the first pair. When they start out, right? Maybe on that day they have been. I think it's some kind of, they step on some kind of poison leaf and make them sick so badly. And you know what? At that moment, the Grandmaster arrived on time with people, and he be able to save him from the poisonous. A lot of things, very wonderful thing happened like that from the Grandmaster. So he don't use the power explicitly, but he uses only the means to help, to protect his disciple. This is the true cultivator. Does it make sense? This is wonderful. It's not easy nowadays to seek for this kind of master. No, not at all. We have to have a very big affinity to see this kind of master. But you never know. When we learn about how to generate the bodhicitta, this is the way that we can generate a great affinity. In the future, we can see the wise advisor, wise teacher, or the bodhisattva. That's also one of the thing we can do, right? So that's the difference between the true cultivator and not true cultivator. I hope it's clear, right?
When you were talking about the Mandala, the one in the temple,
Yeah.
it's funny because I actually have part of it. When I came to you this summer when you were here and
Yeah.
you were teaching me about Earth Store Bodhisattva,
Yeah.
I had asked the master for an Earth Store statue. And
Yeah.
while I was there and you were giving me instructions and stuff, and while I was there, I also asked about the incense because I didn't have any incense. So his mom went and got me a box of incense and she brought it and she gave it to him. And so he was looking through the box and he's like, well, what's this? And he pulled out these 3 baggies that had, and he's like, oh, these are parts of the Mandala. He's like, okay, well, you can have one of them. So he gave me one and kept 2 out. So I actually have part of the Mandala. I need to get a nicer container for it because it's just like in a Ziploc baggie. But I have it up there with the Earth Store Bodhisattva. So it's cool that we're talking about that now.
Wow, that's good. If that's the case, how big the piece of mandala you have?
It's not very big at all. It's like one of those small Ziploc bags that has just a little bit in it. But I need to get like just a little small container.
You know what you should do. This is a good way to worship it in the word. The good way. Here I show you. You can buy this thing here. I think this is the honor those scare worship dharma. We call. Dharma tour, this is just like the Dharma tour, right? You can use the super, okay, super, okay, super. But they are many small pieces, right? They are not bonding together, right? Do they?
No, it's just like a little bag of sand. It's all different colors, but it's just one little bag of sand.
Okay, that's good. You can go to buy this thing right here, and you put in here, and you can put on the altar to just like the relic, the Buddha relic or the holy monk relic, just similar to it. You just do that. You worship the way you worship the Buddha relic. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. Do you have a suggestion of where to get it from? Is there a special place?
Oh yeah, we actually, you know what? They have a lot in the Chinese store. They are in here. Let me see, in Houston. Okay, I can get one for you. Okay. In Houston. This is the store. They should have a lot of those things. But they sell a lot of things. They do have it. I think they do have those things. I think they do have it. If I see it, I will get one for you. Okay, and I will mail to you. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. So basically, this is the good thing to. So it's not too much, right? Only a small Ziploc, right?
Yeah, it's not very much at all.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So I will apply that one. So similar to that, so you can put in that, and that's how you honor and worship the scare, just like the relic, right? That's important. Wow, so you do the Earth Store Bodhisattva Sutra every day?
Not like I used to, not like I did in the summer for those first 49 days. I was doing it every day, but now I just in some of the evenings when I do it with you, then when I catch you on the evenings, then I'll do it on those evenings.
Okay, but you can do that with your practice, your own practice, the daily practice. That is also one of the good things. So when you do that every day, oh my goodness, your place will become very beautiful.
Yes, I need to get back in the habit because it really did make a big difference. It really did. So I need to get back in the habit of doing that on a daily basis.
Oh, it make a difference with your environment.
Yes, I could tell. I could tell just in my life in general, it made everything a lot more peaceful.
Okay, that's very good. That's very good. Very wonderful. Wow, I am very excited that you'll be able to recite those things. It's not easy for the American to do it, especially for American. But you'll be able to do it. That's very wonderful. Okay. Okay. So we're done with the story, and remember in here three of these things here. And remember at the beginning when they say that because Shantideva when they asked him that we recite the new one, right? And he said that this one right here is a long one, this one is a short one, but the Bodhi Kayavatara it's a okay one. That not too long, not too short. That means a guide to the Bodhisattva way of life. That is what we are learning right now. Okay, so all right, that's good. Okay, so all right. So now we will learn about the introduction of this book, and and we will go into detail this. Okay, let's do this. Thăng Thiền, go ahead and read this one for me, please.
Yeah, more for thầy. Do I start from the Bodhisattva?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Bodhisattva Vatara, composed by the 8th century Indian master Shantideva, has occupied an important place in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. Almost conception, Santa that we know about the great University of Nalanda, invited by kings to his son Deten to help in the establishment of the Buddhist teachings in Tibet, could scarcely have been ignorant of the life and achievement of his contemporary and confreres. And it is clear that when he narrated the great work of translating the sutras and etc. into Tibetan, the Bodhisattva figure prominently among the many texts brought from India. Its first translator, Kawa Parasit, was one of the 7 men chosen to take part in an experiment to see whether Tibetans were capable of holding the message down. And since their ordination have occurred in 757, we may conclude that around 740, we do not know exactly when Kawa completed his translation. The first mention of is in the Rama Mandala compiled probably in 824. In any event, the fact that Bodhisattva should have been translated soon after it is quite possible that Shantideva was still alive. On the part with other texts considered one of the first importance for propagation of Buddhism in Tibet. testify to the speed with which the work had established itself already in India, or at least at Nalanda, as we would nowadays call a popular classic. But statement repeated by Kanji Howden commentary composed on the Bodhisattva in India alone is perhaps a pious exaggeration, but there can be no doubt about the extent. Following the universal astonishment that had created its first classification, in which it was held both in its native country and at danger content and rendered the most important of which the Apratna has also survived in the original. The translation of Steve commentary that the Bodhisattva was hardly this is hardly surprising for its systematic practice of the paramitas, and as such was tailor-made for the kind of Mahayana Sutta tradition that Santara Sutta to limit to the Tibetan, in which a generation later Karma is defended so successfully against the Chinese.
Okay, good. Stop right there.
Yeah. Okay. What they're saying is Shantideva seems like he's going to introduce the Dharma to the Tibet. There was a team that invited him to help him to bring the teaching to the Tibetan. So there was once there was was the most important one in Tibetan that was widely teach importance teaching. So I think when he get there, there was a first he was the one that to see where he's able to hold on. So there it seemed like there was coordination in 1767. So I think that's how I understand it.
Okay, that's good. That's good. That's okay. So basically, it's the Bodhisattva Jatvatara, it means a guide to the Bodhisattva way of life, right? That's what it means. And this is the Satra, not the Sutra. This is the Satra. And the different word, the Sutra, that means the Buddha teaching. That means you recite the Earth Store Bodhisattva, Amitabha Sutra, or Diamond Sutra, whatever the sutra you read. That means the Buddha teaching the Dhamma, and we just read it and we understand directly from the teaching. But sometimes the teaching, the sutra, become very complex and profound, meaning it's tough for us to understand. Sutra is the one to help us to explain. Or sutra is the one that just like the way to explain in, for example, in this way here, it's try to help us to understand how to generate the bodhisattva and help us to practice the 6 parameters to form the bodhisattva, right? So and in here they will have the method, the step help us to understand how to develop the bodhicitta, so we can fulfill the practice of parameter, the 6 parameter. So this is also, that's what we call the sastra, help us to understand the Buddha teaching in many different ways, right? So therefore the sastra is important. It represents for the wisdom. The sutra represents for the concentration. The Vinaya represents for the precept or the order or the law, right? The precept, okay? That's what it means. So in Buddhism, we are called the 3 non-outflow Dharma. It means that the first one is the precept, the second one is the concentration, the third one is the wisdom. Does that make sense to you, William? Okay, so in here, this work composed by Shantideva, he the one who do that in the 8th century. But during this, at the beginning, the Santara Chitta, he was a board of the great university of Nalanda from India, right? And he was invited by the king to establish the Buddhism in Tibet, and he bring the sutra and also the sastra into the Tibetan. And he the one that who established the first Buddha teaching in I think the Buddhist center in the Tibetan. And the sastra, that means the Bodhisattva, it's one of them, right? And this sastra is very famous in India because there are more than 108 commentary. That means a lot of people commentary about this teaching. Why a lot of people? It becomes so popular. It's so important about this book, and that's why a lot of people comment on that. And that's why this year later on go to the Tibet and become popular later on in the Tibet. And the first one who do the translation is Kawa, right? And he was one of the 7 who do a translate into the Tibetan language. And this translation later on become very important for propagation the Buddhism in Tibet. Okay. So, and we will learn more in here. Right. So, because this sastra is a Mahayana tradition, it's not the Theravada tradition. So, okay, I think that's good. Wow. All right, Jimmy, and Jimmy. Go ahead, Jimmy. You can read this one for me, please.
Dạ, một Phật và Thầy. Đọc từ đâu ạ?
Over a period of about 300 years.
Yes, sir, yeah. Over a period of about 300 years, the Tibetan version of the Bodhisattva was revised twice. First, by Rinchen Yangpo, 950 to 1055 at the beginning of the new translation period, and finally by Nok Loden Sarab, 1059 to 1109, 100 years later. That there should have been 2 widely spaced revisions to the translation is itself an interesting fact, pointing not only to the gradual discovery by the inhabitants of the existence of diverse version of Shantideva's work, but also to the system interest that his sublime message continued to excite during the first 3 centuries of its existence in Tibetan. It was in all probability found and studied with the help of the sacred commentary just mentioned, aided by the oral tradition preserved from the expositions of the Indian master present in Tibet during the early translation period. And again, following Landama's persecutions of Buddhism by Atisha 892 to 1054, and the bandits who exist, the later translation. Atisha and the masters of the Kadamba tradition, Yatra, in particular, variations number it among their 6 indivisible pieces. The evidence suggests, nevertheless, that however popular it may have been, the Bodhisattva did not simulate a scholarly commentary on the part of the Tibetans.
Okay,
Themselves,
let's stop right there.
yeah, move on.
Rồi đó. Đang dạy học luôn. Người chúc mình rồi. Okay, stop right there. So what happened next?
Yes, during that period, they would like to have several versions of translation between the existence and the arrival of Sanskrit version, the Shantideva.
Okay.
During the first 3 centuries of the existence of the Tibet, so the translation period again translated from the Atisha and the master Kadamba tradition.
Okay.
That's how I understand it.
Okay. All right. William, can you help to explain this thing for me?
It seems that they are trying to give us an understanding of the importance of this document, like during the time after it was written. And so here, you know, they're talking about how the Tibetan masters held it as one of the indispensable doctrines, and that the fact that it was revised twice is suggesting that there was continued interest in it and that it was regularly used as a core part of cultivation. So it's just kind of sharing how important this text has been historically and continues to be for Buddhism.
Okay. So basically, not only the early revision of and later on they also have the version of the Sanskrit, right, for this version, for this Satra, right? Is that true, William?
I'm not sure what it was originally written in. Was it originally written in Sanskrit or was it a different language?
No. Originally from Sanskrit. Because Shantideva from India, right? He's the Indian master. It had to be a Sanskrit. Okay, but so basically the translation of the early translation from the Kawa, and later on they have a two revision, right? apart from 100 years, there were two revisions. But later on, there were another. Okay, they were also discovery by the Tibetan of the existence of rival Sanskrit version of the Shantideva work also subscribed. So this is another version, I guess, right? The Sanskrit version. And the two division, it means the Tibetan version. That means early the translation in the early on, right here. This is the translation from the Kawa Peshat, right? That is and later on there were two revisions during 100 years apart, right? So this is and in here, if I understand correctly, they another version called the Sanskrit version about the Shantideva work, that means related, etc. And during the first 300 years, right? Its existence in the Tibetan, it was about 30, and with the help of the Sanskrit commentary just mentioned, is by the oral tradition research from the exposition of the Indian masters present in the Tibet during the early translation period, and again followed the Landama persecution of the Buddhism by the artista and the pathet, that means the Indian guru or Indian master, or who assists the later translator. So basically, with this version as well, this one, that means it shows us how important of this document is, this satra is. Okay. And Atisa and the master of Kandama tradition helped the Shantideva Satra in particular veneration and numbered in among the 6 indispensable treaty. That means they are using this as the most important of their practice. The evidence suggests that nevertheless, that however popular it may have been, the Bodhisattva did not stimulate the scholarly commentary on the part of what does this mean to you, William?
Yeah, that it's interesting. Maybe they felt, I was thinking maybe the Tibetans felt like there had already been so much commentary on it that there was not additional commentary they needed to add. But that would just be my conclusion. I don't think the text is saying that or even implying it. They don't seem to give a reason for why they didn't do their own commentary.
Sure. Okay, go ahead and you can read the rest here. Just do from here. The evidence suggests.
Okay. The evidence suggests, nevertheless, that however popular it may have been, the Bodhisattva did not stimulate scholarly commentary on the part of the Tibetans themselves. Historically speaking, this is unsurprising, given that the scholastic and commentarial tradition, which was to become so much a part of Tibetan scholarship, really only began in the 12th century with the founding of the monastery of Songfu by the two masters from Ngok, Nekpai Sherab, and his nephew, the translator Loden Sherab. According to the Blue Annals, the earliest Tibetan commentaries on the Bodhisattva were composed by Loden Sherab himself, Chapa Choki Senge, and a contemporary scholar named Nyangdren Choki Yeshi. These 3 works have been lost, but commentaries by two of Chapa's disciples, Sonam Semo, the second hierarch of Shakya, and Thang Nakpa, still survive. From these first beginnings until the present time, a series of important commentaries appeared, among which the most notable were composed by Khan Rinchen Drup, Sazan Mati Panchen Jamyang Nongro, Mulchu Tongme Zanko, Sonam Gyaltsen Palzanko, Jaitam Kapa, Gyaltsap Dharma Rinchen, Pawal Tsul Flag. Trengwa, Mifa Rinpoche, Kempo Zenga, Minya Kunzang Sonam, and Kempo Kunzang Pelden. Although incomplete, this is nevertheless a representative and suggestive list. The chronological grouping of the authors moreoverly indicates that the interest in the Bodhicharyavatara was particularly strong in the two periods. First in the 13th and 14th centuries, and then much later in the 19th and early 20th centuries, separated by a lapse of nearly 300 years from the depth of Powell Tolglag Trengwa to the birth of Mipa Rinpoche. This apparent lull in scholarly activity coincided with a prolonged period of political unrest occurring in Tibet during the 16th and 17th centuries, a period of almost continuous crisis, must surely have been prejudicial to centers of learning. And the resulting intellectual stagnation could only have been aggravated by the increase in sectarian intolerance that followed the civil war in Tsang and the ensuing political unsettlement. This unhappy state of affairs eventually provoked, in the 19th century, a reaction in the form of the Rhine, or non-sectarian movement, inaugurated by the combined efforts of a number of outstanding masters, principally of the Nyingma, Sakya, and Kagyu schools. Their aim was to recover and preserve the many different streams of learning and spiritual practice of all traditions of Tibetan religion, the continued existence of which had been under threat owing to the social and political conflicts of the previous age, as well as to the oppressive spirit of religious prejudice that subsequently prevailed. Another thing to notice in the earlier commentaries on the Bodhicharyavatara is the distribution of traditional allegiances that they reveal. In an earlier and more generous age, before relations had been soured by the antagonisms just mentioned, the different schools of Tibetan Buddhism, though distinct in their views and practices, enjoyed an easy coexistence. It was not unusual for keen students to receive teachings from a variety of traditions, and it was precisely the spirit of openness, mutual respect, and healthy eclecticism that the Rhine movement was intent on reviving. Once again, these facts are reflected in our list of commentaries. We find that in the early period, interest in the Bodhicharyavatara was broadly pervasive. Bhutan and Ngulchu, Dongme Zangpo, were Karampas, Sazang was a Donangpa, and Jetsong Kappa and his disciple Gyaltsap were Galupas, and Powell Tsulglag Trengwa was a Gagyupa. By contrast, the four commentaries composed in the later period suggest a somewhat different picture. Although one was by the Galupa master Minyak, Kunzang Sonam, and the other three were composed by Nyingmapas, the inspiration for all of them derived from the common source, the teaching of Patrul Rinpoche. In other words, the existence of these commentaries, and they are the most important in modern time, is evident that after a lull of nearly 3 centuries, and thanks to the Rhine movement, there occurred a resurgence of interest in the Bodhicharyavatara, which was in very large measure due to the activities and extraordinary personality of Patrul Rinpoche.
Good, stop right there. Wow, it's a lot of introduction. But anyway, it's briefly. So look like just briefly, give us some.
Okay. Well, Patrul Rinpoche, I've certainly heard of. He composed a book called The Word of that's a pretty great one. But what this is discussing is the commentaries done in Tibet. And so before I started reading, you asked me why I thought that there hadn't been commentaries. And the next page actually answered that question. So there hadn't been commentaries just because there weren't really, oh no, sweetie, it's bedtime. You gotta put those away. There hadn't been commentaries just because the Tibetans hadn't really started making commentaries until the 12th century. And so then at that point, when they were making commentaries on other texts, commentaries about the Bodhicharyavatara began to emerge. And they're really divided into kind of 2 periods that were separated by a period of unrest, like civil unrest that was kind of negative towards religious life and oppressive towards religious expression, it sounds like. So
Yeah,
they distinguished that the earlier phase that like ended around the 15th century was marked by more of an openness between the different schools of thought within Tibet. And they highlighted that students would frequently learn from the different schools, and it was something which was celebrated and was not an issue. So during that period of civil unrest, it seems like that became more of an issue. The schools became maybe a little more insular and weren't as open to students studying between them. But then there was the Rime movement or the Rime movement, where they wanted to revive that spirit of openness and learning across the schools. And so at the same time, interest in the Bodhicharyavatara also increased, and that was kind of evidenced by the increased number of commentaries that were made during that period. And it seems that that revival was very strongly initiated by a single master, Patrul Rinpoche, that then influenced other masters. So yeah, cool. A lot of Tibetan names I am not familiar with, but all sound have a very nice sound to them.
But me too. And I'm not familiar with the pattern matter. But anyway, they done a lot of good work. So we are so fortunate to learn all these things. That's the good news. Anyway, we stop right here, and we will continue on next week. Before that, you know what? Okay, let's stop right here. Okay. All right. And Jimmy, go ahead and do this one for me, Jimmy. And Jimmy, are you there? Okay. Thank go ahead.
Yeah. May every living being among us is one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with heart of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts combine in giving unity, may their minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sow the grief and pain. May this boundless light break the darkness of the endless night. Because our hearts are one before the pen turn into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise.
Good, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Let me the mantra quickly. Even though we don't have, you know what?